project is titled Growth Happens. And as I take a retrospective look on our project, I'm reminded of a phrase uttered by United States Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart. If you were working with us on our project, he might have said, "I can't define growth, but I know it when I see it." That phrase says volumes in describing our project as it developed. While we originally intended to focus on one project, the Stanley Ranch, that project has yet to get off the ground, largely for political reasons. From our meeting with Tom Canby of the Stanley Ranch, we learned that there was more to this project than just new homes, a golf course, winery, etc. The project will also add to the quality of life for current residents. Conversely, Diane Dillon from Get a Grip on Growth showed us another less attractive perspective of the project. What we gained from both presentations is that no matter what your opinion of this or any project, growth is more than just newly poured concrete and for sale signs. Growth is also retail, commercial, and industrial opportunities. Growth is also the provision of a variety of public services, including water, sewer, parks, open spaces, schools, libraries, public safety, etc. It's a balance between the maintenance of the quality of life while planning for future users of the community. Celine Haugen of the Napa Valley Economic Development Corporation shared the concept of mixed-use development as a way of bridging the apparent gulf between quality of life and growing sustainable community. With this introduction, we eventually settled on describing how growth will occur in the entire city of Napa based upon the current general plan, a living policy blueprint for the city.
Growth is inevitable. As many of you know, land use is a hot topic in Napa. Napa is primarily an agricultural region and secondarily a prosperous and vibrant community. This prosperity commonly conflicts with the agricultural concerns in the area. The city of Napa has developed a general plan to spell out the rules for this conflict in the upcoming years. One primary goal of the general plan is to keep growth within the RUL. The Rural Urban Limit Line, or RUL, was established in 1973 to specify the boundary between the city of Napa and the surrounding agricultural region. The general plan mandates a maximum growth rate of 1.3% to the year 2020 in order to remain within this RUL. 1.3% also being the growth rate in the Bay Area between 1980 and 1990. The city of Napa will closely monitor the number and type of construction permits granted each year to stay within the RUL. Napa's general plan also aims to promote sustainability and preserve neighborhood character during the growth process. Sustainability is the conservation of natural resources and the balance between job availability, pay, and cost of living. In order to improve this balance in the Napa area, business park development will be encouraged to add more higher paying jobs. The city of Napa will also require growth to preserve neighborhood character by guiding density and also by promoting infill of consistent style. One of the major directives of the city's general plan is to revitalize the downtown area. Several key points in this directive are as follows. The city will encourage mixed use, whereby commerce and residential functions are commingled, thereby resulting in less traffic and a higher quality of life. The city will also support events, projects, current and potential business. Additionally, the city will promote riverfront development. While growth, and therefore land use, is driven by the laws of supply and demand, the city of Napa keeps it in check through the policies of the general plan.
When people think about growth, perhaps one of the first things that come to mind is the effect growth has on traffic and parking problems. You saw the group right before us talking about spokes for folks. I think that's a great solution. In the last several decades, it's probably apparent to everybody here that as a nation as a whole, we've spent billions of dollars on transportation based on the private automobile. Despite the obvious environmental and monetary cost of over-reliance on private cars, the automobile is expected to continue to be the primary source of transportation for the individual. However, society is increasingly turning its attention to other sources of transportation. The problem for the city of Napa, as with other cities, is to employ limited resources to provide for our most popular source of transportation, namely the car, and still provide funding for other less popular but important sources of transportation. For Napa, we believe there are two distinct groups with differing and sometimes competing transportation needs. First, local residents, and second, tourists, which are an important source of revenue for our community. The transportation needs of these two groups have a tremendous effect on the character of our community. So how do we provide for the increasing transportation needs of these two groups without drastically changing the character of our community? The general plan, while recognizing that the private car will continue to be the primary source of transportation in the future, proposes carpooling, public transportation, bicycling, and walking. While these remedies are somewhat obvious, the general plan focuses on making them a realistic alternative. For example, most of us think that public transportation is great in theory, but let's face it, it takes 45 minutes to get across town on the bus. Most of us are not willing to do it. Therefore, a major emphasis should be placed on revamping public transportation schedules and systems to make them a practical alternative to the automobile. Another idea for solving the transportation-related problems associated with growth is downtown development based on mixed-use structures, and I'll come back to that in a minute. It's also probably obvious that parking is the other side of the transportation coin, and is greatly affected by growth. In addition, an increase in tourism affects parking not only for the tourists, but locals as well. One idea is, of course, to provide more parking. However, multi-story parking garages in and around downtown Napa not only diminish the character and charm of Napa, but also encourage people to use their car more frequently. Carpooling, use of public transportation, bicycling, and walking are all good answers to the parking problem. Another solution to this problem, as I alluded to earlier, can be found in the course growth and development takes in downtown Napa. What we are suggesting is an emphasis on mixed-use structures. By mixed use, I mean structures with shops and restaurants on the first floor, businesses and offices on the second floor, and housing on the third floor. Mixed-use structures alleviate both traffic and parking problems because they permit people to live, work, and shop in one area, thus decreasing the number of car trips per person per day. In other words, mixed-use structures place everything a person needs in their own immediate neighborhood. In addition, with people working, living, and shopping in downtown Napa, a thriving and vibrant community will be created. We obviously do not have all the answers to all the transportation issues which arise from growth. However, we hope that these suggestions will be considered as a possible method for alleviating some of the transportation issues associated with growth.
Housing is a key issue for Napa right now, and the major objective of the city's housing plan is a broad range of housing types that are affordable to all of the city's residents and able to meet the needs of its workforce. This was adopted in 1992, and it's approximately a 9-year plan. It expires in the year 2001. Housing development is really critical in the city of Napa. The city general plan calls for the addition of approximately 3,500 new housing units over this 9-year period. Roughly 2,200 of those are targeted for low or very low to moderate income folks. The Association of Bay Area Governments, however, forecasts population, housing, and employment over the Bay Area, and they are projecting that there are going to be 30,000 new jobs created in Napa County and approximately 30,000 new residents. So with construction of 3,500 new units, where are we going to put all these people? That becomes a problem. Another area of the housing plan is to retain the existing base of affordable housing. And at the present time, there is a lack of proportion in housing development to meet the needs of Napa residents, both present and future. People who work in Napa often cannot afford to live in Napa. That causes stress on local infrastructure and transportation. You heard about that from another group as well. Another area of the general plan is that of equal opportunity housing. That means that there should be a broad range of housing for people from the very low to the above average in income. And what happens is, if you don't have that range of housing available, is that you end up with gentrification, and that gentrification promotes economic segregation. So the last element of the general plan, and that's actually up for review right now, is to update the housing element. And we think that sustainability and mixed use may be a solution for this. Mixed-use projects increase the density in the core area of downtown while preserving the agricultural base. It can also restore the existing urban centers and towns within larger metropolitan regions. It can reconfigure sprawling suburbs into communities of real neighborhoods and diverse districts. It can conserve the natural environment and also preserve our historical legacies.
Excuse me. In planning for growth, the city has considered parks, recreation, and historic resources. When thinking of Napa, we think of most of us focus on old neighborhoods and vineyards. However, Napa is situated in a very natural environment. Napa is home to both the coast redwood and the interior live oak, and the San Francisco Bay wetlands. And when thinking of Napa, Napa has attempted to protect its rich natural heritage as it provides a variety of social and recreational services to the community. The city has created the Napa Abajo Fuller Historic Area to aid in protecting one old neighborhood. This is an example of how the city has attempted to incorporate the existing natural surroundings and historic artifacts into plans for the future development, for future development of parks and recreational activities. The city's Cultural Heritage Commission was created to ensure community input in the process of protecting Napa's past while building for the future. There are 753 acres of parks, 287 improved, 466 passive or minimally improved. These include city parks, community parks, neighborhood parks, mini parks, and civic areas. Master plans have been developed to guide the development for Kennedy, Alston, Westwood Hills, and Timber Hills parks. Funding is provided through a variety of public and private sources. Future needs are determined based on specific formulas. Identified needs include public pools, additional youth baseball fields, soccer fields, tennis courts, and new indoor gym space. The Napa River is one of the most important natural features of the local landscape. The city maintains hiking trails to help cement the river as a focal point for the community, no pun intended. The flood control project will consider the impact on historical areas before pursuing work. The city operates a wide variety of recreational, leisure, and cultural programs throughout the year. The city collaborates with schools and other entities, including the school district, the college district, and other local government agencies, to pool resources efficiently. The city keeps prices low and actively looks to new and different services to address the needs of community groups. The city will periodically publishes a newsletter and a recreation schedule to help make sure these services are accessible to the public. And in order to ensure that the city is providing services that the public approves of, the city maintains a variety of other citizen commissions to review city plans and objectives. These include the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Senior Commission, Bike Subcommittee, Tree Commission, and Trail Subcommittee.
Part of the growth and part of the projects that we looked at were the downtown revitalization and the convention center. And the downtown revitalization project and all growth must take into consideration all aspects of health and safety concerns as outlined in the City of Napa's general plan. A downtown convention center must make sure that seismic hazards are considered and that any construction of a hotel or convention center must be able to withstand an earthquake that could affect the area. The plans must also take into consideration how building this complex and the exulting growth surrounding it must not cause erosion concerns into an already troubled Napa River. The revitalization and wine center must adhere to the new plan for the Napa River and the flood project that both the city and the county have committed. Any structures built must not affect the flow or add to the contamination of the river. Access to the river and the vessel these projects might bring need to be considered in any plans for growth. Building codes must be enforced so that any new structures must meet fire code standards. As projects are completed and more buildings are grouped closer together, the possibility of fire spreading from building to building is of concern. Also taken into consideration must be access and egress of safety equipment and evacuation plans for each building and the entire area. Also, as building takes place and construction is completed, noise problems must be addressed not only for the residents who already live there in the area, but also the conventioners who will use these facilities. Failure to adhere to any health and safety concerns as described in the city's general plan would not only affect the safety of those in the area of revitalization, but the entire city of Napa. As resources are assigned to this area, it will take away from resources of personnel able to respond to the rest of the population. In conclusion, evaluating any specific growth project requires an understanding of the process. Part of our group process was to get, as you can see, a lot of facts and figures together, some of it boring. But, you know, we wish we could come in here and have parties. We didn't do that because we held most of the meetings at my place of employment and we couldn't bring in wine to drink. They wouldn't let us bring in too much equipment, even though I am the boss, they don't let me do that. So we kind of looked at this as a process to learn what growth was about and why there's not affordable housing in Napa and why we can't just go out and build it. You know, everybody complains about it, but trying to understand it is a different question. So we had to understand the whole process of growth before we could decide what our project was. And most of that project ended up being understanding the many varied aspects of growth and why things don't occur. And of course, the very last thing is that you can see is growth is a product of political, economical, and social influences. And that is really true in Napa. The average home price is now at $319,000 and rising. Trying to be an affordable housing unit in Napa means you have to have at least $250,000 to build a house. That's affordable. Not everybody can afford that. So the problem is trying to get people to adjust to the fact that this is an affluent community and that we still have people who aren't that affluent and we have to do something to help them. So we wish we could have done more. We wish we could have built a housing structure, but we were about $319,000 short. We would like to thank all those people again who gave us a lot of help in this project. Tom Canby from the Stanley Ranch Project, Diane Dillon from Get a Grip on Growth, Celine Hagen of the Napa Valley Economic Development Corporation, Jill, who has been our mentor and overseer and pusher and shover, and John for all his help in trying to keep us on track, and we thank you, John, for doing that. Good.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Youngling.
Lorraine Duvernay.
Dan Cunningham.
Mike Weinberg.
And Jake Ellebron.
We really do like each other.
All right. Oh, there you go.